Hello and welcome back to my channel. Today we are going to be making some Christmas crafts. So without any further ado, let's get started with today's budget-friendly Christmas DIYs. I have been crafting with my stash, just using what I've got. This piece I believe came from the Dollar Tree. I'm crafting my stash, also my mom's excess stash that she has given to me, but most of that is from the Dollar Tree as well. So I'm starting off by peeling off the paper. We're just looking for a base. You could just simply use a scrap piece of wood, whether it's chunky or flat. We're just looking for a base to attach things to. Although with the words or the letters that I'm going to use, it's helpful to have a little bit of depth to the piece. I've shown you this before, peeling off the paper and then spraying with some water, putting a paper towel on it so it can just soak, scraping and repeating until it comes off. This just took like 2 rounds. Doing it a couple times helps get to all of the layers, including the glue. You may not have to do that depending on what kind of piece that you are crafting with. We're going to give this a good coat of Waverly chalk paint in the color white. I do find that with this pressed board or MDF material, it soaks up the paint really good. So, I try not to put it on too heavy because it doesn't really spread around much. It just kind of soaks right in. So just something to be aware of if you're using that type of material. And I did do 2 coats just to get a nice, smooth, even coverage. I like to share with you how I'm making stuff on a budget, but also give you some ideas of where you can get things because we don't all have access to the same things or just don't all have the same things in our stash. I have shared before that I love to pick up stuff from Dollar General, and I had picked up on clearance some little mini blanket ladders, and these letters were on it, and I've done something with that ladder before, but I had these in my stash, so I said, well, we're gonna go ahead and paint it. I am gonna use Crimson by Waverly, and this paint is a little bit chunky. It's been there a little while, so I'm just stirring it up, and I'm gonna add a tiniest bit of water and stir that around. I do typically use filtered water just to make sure that my paint doesn't spoil, because if it's just gonna sit there for another few months after adding some water, I don't want, it to get gross. I'm going to be painting on, I'm just using a scrap piece from a Dollar Tree calendar. I've been trying to use little scraps I have for just my painting surfaces and rather than just throwing them out. These pieces are metal, so I'm gonna paint 2 coats, front and back, and you wanna let that fully dry in between coats. Paint and metal sometimes don't adhere super great. If you don't happen to have these letters that I pulled off of a mini blanket ladder from clearance at Dollar General, you can go to craft stores. I think even Walmart has a variety of letters, whether it's wood or that MDF type of material. They have them in a variety of sizes, so depending on the size piece that you're making, you can find something that will work for you. Now mine have a metal stake at the bottom, so we're going to attach it that way, but if you have a thicker piece, you can probably just glue the bottom of it. I am going to give these a coat of Mod Podge because I didn't want the paint to chip off of the metal. I have been trying to get better at using a thinner coat of Mod Podge because I do think it makes a difference in the texture. You might be able to hear there is a plane going overhead, and it's kind of loud. Maybe you couldn't hear it at all, but I'm going to do that front and back just to make sure, the paint doesn't chip off. But like I said, if you're painting a wood piece, you probably don't need to seal it in, but I'm going to leave that up to you. Do what feels right for you. So I didn't go crazy measuring this, but I did want to make sure that my letters were centered. So I at least started with centering the first letter. You can do any word as well. I happen to have joy sticking around, laying around in my house, so that's what I'm using, and I love that word for Christmas. I am using all sorts of things to make a little hole here. I had a bit on this screwdriver that is more of a point, and it doesn't have any of the ridges, but it wasn't going deep enough, and so I started hammering it from the sides to carve it out a little bit more. You'll see in a second here. I think here it is. But it would have been easier for me to get a nail about the size of the peg on my letters and hammer that in and then pull the nail out, but I didn't feel like going hunting for that. So I was just using what I had in my craft room. So I just like to share that with you because there's a lot of ways to do this. Also, a small hand drill would be great. That is something that I am thinking of adding to my stash. I like to keep my tools simple, but I do think a mini hand drill would be helpful. I am just attaching these with some hot glue in the hole and then pushing the peg down in, and I'm going to do that for all 3 letters. But if you're just using something with a flat surface, I think hot glue is good enough, or whatever your glue of choice would be. And then I have these trees. These are from the Dollar General. And then these are probably from the Dollar General. I don't know. I've had them a while. In fact, some of these larger ones have bows on them that I'm going to use my heat gun to soften the glue so that I can pull the bows off. I will say be careful if you're using a heat gun because it can be pretty hot. I did used to use a hairdryer to soften hot glue. I haven't used a hairdryer on my hair in more years than I can count. But once my hairdryer's heating element went out on it, since I wasn't using it for my hair at all, I decided to just get a heat gun. And so that is what I use, but you can certainly use a hairdryer. I couldn't quite get all the hot glue off, so I'm just trimming it off at the top. I like to share these pieces with you, or these parts with you, because I just want you to show you how you can just work with what you've got and make it work for what you've got. No, make what you've got work for you. Sorry, a little tongue-tied. These, I just have 3 different sizes, and I'm just gonna hot glue them in a way that looks nice to me. I don't love this color of these trees because they're more of like that blue instead of a green, but that also kind of makes them a little bit more vintagey looking in my opinion. So I actually kind of liked how they looked on this piece. And now I'm going in carefully with some Mod Podge, because we're gonna add on some faux snow. I know that the faux snow can be a little messy, and so can glitter, but I kind of like it for Christmas time. I don't mind the mess. I am working on a little bit of a mat just to make it easier to clean up the mess at the end, and I'm wiping off a little Mod Podge that I accidentally got on the letters. I'm gonna do just a few sections at a time. I'm going to put some Mod Podge. You don't want to go too thin on the Mod Podge because you don't want it to dry right away, but you also don't want it to be clumpy. And then I'm just sprinkling this faux snow. Dollar Tree and Hobby Lobby both carry it. I'm sure other places, but I know they both do. And honestly, if you have a Hobby Lobby, it's usually a better price with their sales. And a little bit goes a long way. And I'm just kind of sprinkling it on, gently pressing it in, and then tapping off any excess, and then going in with my Mod Podge to add to some more areas. If you get any faux snow on your Mod Podge brush, you don't want to stick that back in the Mod Podge bottle. So pour some out into like a little plate or something if you need to. But I'm just going to keep going until I like it. If you press it in gently, like tap it with your finger and then let it solidly dry, it really doesn't just like fall off everywhere. But if you don't like that, of course, you can skip that step. But I just think all of the extras, little sparkle and shimmer, is really fun for Christmas. I don't use that in my decor any other time, but I love it for Christmas. I just kind of like an old school traditional look. So that's just me. I love how this piece came out. These are things I literally just had laying around my house. I didn't have to go to the store for anything. If you're a crafter, chances are you have a pretty good craft stash as well. Let me know what you guys think about this and if you want to try to make something similar. Does anyone recognize these little boxes things from Dollar Tree? I don't know what you're supposed to do with them, but I'm pulling mine apart. This is going to give me 2 wood trees for some crafts, and I'll probably use the other pieces for random miscellaneous things. And then I have this burlap canvas. Don't know where that came from. So sorry, but you could use a blank sign. You could just use a canvas and paint it or cover it in burlap if you like that look and you don't have a burlap canvas. They also sell like burlap looking craft paper. So have fun with it. There's lots of ways to make these similar things with a lot of different items. I'm just sanding down at the bottom to smooth that out, make sure it's straight and make sure it's smooth. And then I'm going in, I believe this is Fern by Waverly. This one's also a little chunky. I think with the color paints, like not white, I need to start buying the smaller bottles because I do make a lot of crafts, but I still don't go through them super fast. I have a bunch of small bottles that my mom gave me, so I'm excited to have some more colors. But anyways, stirred it up, and now we're gonna add in some baking soda. This is gonna help this have a little bit of texture. If you have access to Salt Wash, which I know Sammy from Unicorn Dust Design sells it on her website. I know several people who use it and love it. It adds a stiffer texture. I don't have it, so I'm just using baking soda, and I'm gonna show you a trick to help still get some of those stiffer peaks. I just thought the texture on this would be nice, so I'm gonna start by brushing this on to make sure we cover all of the surface, and then I'm gonna go up and down, like tapping it with my paintbrush to get those little peaks and that added texture. I've heard people say that the baking soda can sometimes mess up your paintbrush, so if you want, use an older paintbrush. But honestly, I think if you wash it pretty quickly afterwards with warm water, baking soda dissolves just fine. So here is my tip here. It's kind of hard to see on camera, but as it dries, the peaks and the texture kind of almost like melt and go down. So I'm drying it a little bit with my heat gun. And if you don't have a heat gun, you can just let it air dry and work on something else and then kind of go back and forth. So as it's drying, I'm stippling it again to bring back some of that texture. And that works really good because yeah, the baking soda doesn't give the same type of texture that the salt wash does, but it works and I have it on hand. So that's what we're gonna use. And then I thought it'd be fun to bring out that texture. And so I'm using a chippy brush and some white paint, brushing most of it off of my brush. And I'm just gonna gently glide over the tree to touch the paint to like the peaks and everything. That piece of cardboard or whatever it is to the right with all the colors, all of the other colors are dry. I just kind of keep reusing it over and over again as like my little paint palette. I'm simply going to hot glue this to the burlap canvas, and I should have left it alone right there, but I didn't. Also, this does not have a hanger on it, but you can easily add little hangers on the back with like some jute twine or whatever, but I'm just gonna probably use this as like a little leaner sign. We're gonna hot glue this to the burlap. I'm going to flip it around and use my little silicone spatula to press down because the hot glue will come through the burlap, but I wanted to make sure it had some good contact. And then I was like, oh, maybe I should Mod Podge this. 1, probably not necessary on this project. 2, I don't think my white paint was fully dry, so it kind of smeared. But in the end, I don't hate it, it's fine, but just a heads up for you. I was also trying to go light on the Mod Podge, which is kind of hard to do with the texture, but I feel like it kind of ended up blurring it a little bit, as you can see here. But I do love how it came out. Let me know what you guys think. You know, when you see pieces at the Dollar Tree or the craft store or even the thrift store, look at how you can use them differently than they're intended, like I did with this wood tree. This frame, I believe I think my mom gave this to me. It looks like a Dollar Tree frame, just because the back is not super well made. But I'm gonna show you how you can just use whatever you have and transform it. Initially, I was thinking of leaving a lot of that gray there, and I was just gonna do something separate at the bottom, but then I didn't really like that. I ended up just giving this whole thing a couple coats of white paint, including that white trim. It was just too hard to keep the paint off of it. So I just painted the whole thing and gave it a couple of coats. You're gonna still be able to kind of see the shiplappy lines, but once again, use whatever frame you have. I made it work with the size opening. I think it was like a 4x6. I'm just using what I have on hand. So if you have a frame lying around that you just don't like anymore, you wanna repurpose it, great. I have had really good luck at finding frames, often new still in their plastic at thrift stores. It's been a while since I've been to one, but I had a season where I bought several that way, or you can buy them at like the Dollar Tree, wherever. But I also like using old pieces around my house that I don't like anymore, and I get ready to donate them, and I'm like, why would I donate it to a thrift store when I could go? I'm like the person who goes and buys things at the thrift store. I'm like, so I might as well just make it over myself if I don't like it anymore. So I do that all the time. And then I have this scrap paper probably from Hobby Lobby. Looks like I've already used it a couple times, using the glass to trace out the piece that I need. I do miss filming a step here. I went over the frame with some antique wax in the front, and I don't know what happened. I don't seem to have it anywhere. So just so you know, I'm going to flip it over and it's going to look different. And I was going to just try placing the paper in here, but I was afraid it would move around a lot. So I put it back on the paper that it was in the frame and just taped the corners. And then this back frame, like I had to tear the top of it to get it out because there's just these little tabs, and they're tabs that don't move. There was like no other way to get it out. Anyway, again, we're making it work. And you can see frame looks different here. At the end, I don't know if I should have done the antique wax or not. But moving on, I have these pieces. This was a 4 count from Hobby Lobby, $2.99. I don't know if they have these exact ones this year, but it's at least 50% off right now. They had a little jute hanger on them, but there's no hole in the pieces at all. So it just was some wood words. I think it was in the table decor area. I've said this before, walk through the stores and look at stuff. Like, don't just look at the crafting area. Look at all the areas if you have the time to browse the store. And it was a little too big, so I'm trimming it off, and then I'm going to sand it down. These are thin pieces, so I'm going to hold closely to the part that's being sanded so that it doesn't bend and break, and just gently sand it and smooth it out. But this is going to try to make it look like, it was supposed to be like this. You wouldn't know that it had those big loops and curls on it, and it's gonna work well. I'm gonna go over it with a little bit of antique wax because I wanted it to stand out a little bit from the paper. But let me know what you guys think about this. I love antique wax. I love a rustic look, but I kind of wish I had either left the frame white or maybe did a color. I don't know. Let me know what you think. Then I have these wood snowflake stickers. These are originally from Target for $3. I got them at a thrift store for 99 cents. It was a brand new package when I bought it. I've used several already, but I wanted to show you could get these wood snowflakes. They come in a variety of patterns in a pack from Hobby Lobby, and you get a ton of them. It's a great price. Paint them, add buttons, don't add buttons. If you don't have these stickers, you can certainly make something similar. And I will probably do that in the future, but I have these ones already, so I'm going to use them. I was getting a little bit worried here though, because when I pulled the first red one off, I broke off one of the parts of the snowflake. Is there a name for like those little pieces that go out in a snowflake? Probably is some scientific name. But I decided that I could just attach it when I was sticking it down and you'd never notice, and that's exactly it. You can't even notice. They have a stickiness on them, so I didn't have to add any glue, and I just did the red and green ones alternating. I did the two end ones, and then I did the two middle ones at the same time, so I could make sure to evenly space them. But they fit perfectly on that bottom plank of the frame. And then I'm just going to use a little bit of hot glue on some of those larger parts of the word. It's a little hard sometimes to get hot glue on those little skinny pieces, and place that right on top of the glass. And that is it for this piece. Overall, I do like it. I do kind of second guess some of my choices and colors. Let me know what you guys think. But I hope this gave you some great ideas and inspiration of making some pieces, maybe with things you already have at home. So again, this is me looking around my craft stash, looking at what I've got. So I've got a wood slice, and then I have these wood sticks that originally came from the Dollar Tree forever ago. And I'm just picking through them to find the tallest one. So you could also just use a stick from your yard. You could also use a cinnamon stick, which I thought about, but at this point I didn't feel like going down to my kitchen and getting my cinnamon sticks. I'm speeding this way up because it took a little while. It wasn't hard, but it took a while, and I've shown you this before. I have bags, like 2 bags of scrap pieces of those garland ties. You can get them at Dollar Tree. You can get them at Hobby Lobby. I say those 2 places because that's where I shop the most, but I would guess that like Michael's would probably have it too. I don't know. But they're a little too furry for me, so I'm trimming them down, and we're making a tree. I don't know if I already said that. I'm making 2 of each size for the front and the back. And I'm just gonna make them one a little bit shorter than the other, so we have the shape of a tree. If you are enjoying this video, please give it a thumbs up. That helps me out so much. And if you are not subscribed, please make sure you are subscribed. Just because you normally see my videos doesn't mean that you will continue to. If you don't subscribe, that will help out a ton. And maybe you've heard from other YouTubers. YouTube's having a lot of struggles here showing people videos. So it would just help out if you did that. If you like my stuff. If you don't like it, then hopefully you've already clicked off, because no point in staying here if you don't like what I'm doing. Anyways, I do appreciate you being here. I am now hot gluing the other side. So if you saw the first side, I just put a bead of hot glue down the stick, press that down, and then for this other side, I'm just doing a few branches at a time, and then I'll trim them up to make everything even as needed. Just to kind of clean it up. I am pressing down to curve the wire of those branches towards one another just a little bit, because I didn't want there to be a gap. I didn't need to put any glue because they are wired, but I did just gently press them down around the stick to curve them in. And then for the top, I just put some hot glue and dabbed it into all that mess from trimming off the branches, and that worked perfectly. If you have made it this far in the video, would you leave me a little Christmas tree emoji? I would love that. It lets me know that you're here, and also the interaction on YouTube, it just helps me out. I just use a little bit of glue at the bottom of the stick and apply that to our little wood disc. You could use a lot of different things for the base if you don't have one of those wood discs. And then I am applying a little wood star. I did end up switching it out for a slightly larger one, but didn't film that change. I love how this one came out. I kept it neutral. I didn't add any red berries. I didn't paint the star. I just kind of went for a more like rustic, simple look here. But of course, play with it. Do it as you will. Make it your style. Let me know what you guys think of this one down below. That is going to do it for today's video. Thank you guys so much for being here. Once again, if you liked it, please give it a thumbs up, subscribe, turn on your notification bell, leave me a comment. All of those things. I really appreciate each and every one of you. Your support means a lot, and I love interacting with you in the comments. See you in the next one.